We're told to do more with less in the nonprofit sector, but sometimes it pays to invest in the infrastructure of our organizations. On this episode, Travis Laws, President and Chief Executive of Wynn Warehouse based in St. Louis, Missouri, will be sharing with us about the value of investing in your organization and the importance of telling your story.
Welcome to the Social Good Instigators Podcast, where your host, Kirsten Bullock, interviews leaders of social entrepreneurship ventures who share what's working. Please add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. Now, let's get on with the show.
Hi, Travis. Thanks so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Kirsten. Thank you.
You're welcome. Travis Laws is passionate about helping nonprofits achieve their boundless potential. He's a committed community volunteer with an arts education and a career in business management. As president and chief executive of Worldwide Inventory Network, he leads a team that connects nonprofit organizations with the goods they need and with the goods that enable them to further their impact to do more good. And he also provides an avenue for companies to donate inventory and get a tax deduction. So it's a win-win for everybody all the way around. So it's neat what you do, and thanks for doing it.
Oh, well, thank you for helping us get the word out about it. Worldwide Inventory Network, we abbreviate as WIN and refer to ourselves as Wynn Warehouse. We're also a nonprofit organization, 501c3. We specialize in receiving all kinds of donations of excess inventory in bulk from companies that have overstocks and things of that nature. And then we get the pleasure of distributing them to all kinds of people doing good in the community. And we like to say that we love our jobs because we get to give things away for a living. We do charge a small handling charge for our services, and that keeps us sustainable. But we're proud to partner with some of the people doing some very, very good work in our community.
Awesome. And what's the scope? What kind of geographic area do you cover?
Well, we have one location in St. Louis, Missouri, and that's nice and central for our donors as far as shipping things to us. And so we've got a lot of history with organizations in the Midwest, but for about the last 10 years, we've been distributing a lot of inventory just through an e-commerce channel. And so we've got members all over the country, and then many of our members do international work. So there's products that have flowed through us just in all corners of the globe. No doubt about it. We've seen, pictures of some of our products winding up as far away as Papua New Guinea or Europe, and then, partnerships with folks in Haiti and other areas where they're trying to alleviate poverty. And so we're just trying to empower the people that are doing the heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm. So over the last 28 years, you've grown a lot. You started, I think, just local and then grew to national. Through that process, I imagine that there were some times when things maybe didn't work out so well, other times that they were really successful. What do you think was I'll start with your biggest win, their biggest success that you saw, and then follow that up, just to warn you to ask about maybe something that didn't go so well.
Okay.
But to start, what would you see as one of your biggest wins over the last 28 years?
So I think one of the biggest aha moments we had, when I started out, there was a lot of talk about about overhead percentages, and people in the sector now are really very familiar with that. But way back in the day, that was the only way a lot of people measured your effectiveness was looking at your program revenue versus what your administrative costs were. And as somebody who, as an organization who deals primarily in gifts in kind, we would see these donations, distributions flow out as program expenses, even though it wasn't really money. It was the value of the products that our members were receiving. And so we had a really low overhead percentage, and somebody told us, wow, that's really good. And we bought into that a little bit, because people like to be told that they're doing a really good job. And we were, but at the same time, that wasn't the appropriate measure. So I think I may have flipped your question backwards and talk a little bit about, maybe the wrong way to look at things. But, a real aha moment came for us when Dan Pallotta gave his talk at a TED conference in 2013 called "The Way We Think About Charity is Dead Wrong." And he highlighted, some successes and failures in his career, and primarily how evaluating organizations and charities about with just their percentage of overhead really ignores just problems of achieving scale and the scope of these missions. And that really had us thinking, because we were at a time that we were experiencing some growth and talking about how to do that right and how to not overextend ourselves, but still dreaming really big. And it did cause us to reevaluate. Hey, investing in something and for its growth and building capacity might look like overhead on our 990 form, but it really can bring about tremendous impact over the long arc of what our organization is doing.
Mm-hmm. And so then it sounds like you may have made an intentional decision at some point to invest in the infrastructure for your organization and to not necessarily ignore the overhead percentage completely, but diminish the importance of that and really focus on the impact that you could have.
Exactly. There's been two in the last 10 years. The first was that we had rented space in a warehouse, and we'd had the buildings about 150,000 square feet, and we had rented just a couple of sections of that, and had grown to the point where we had about 25% of the building, and there were other tenants that had the remainder of it. And of course, you're limited in what you can receive and what you can do, how much you can store. And we had an opportunity in 2010 to purchase the entire building. And, so we saw, tremendous capacity just overnight. And having that capacity, some of our donors were anxious to utilize this even more for, just a solution for their excess inventory and reverse logistics. And since that time, we've seen over 150% growth just because of that capacity. And so we have, just products running out of our ears. Our next challenge after that was to begin to be better and more efficient and more dynamic about our distribution, because obviously you can't just pile that stuff up. Even with 150,000 square feet, you run out of room.
Right.
And so, we had our initial e-commerce presence that I had mentioned was really just not very robust. It was built on shareware. It was, hey, how quickly and inexpensively can we do this? And we ran into problem after problem. The thing would be attacked by malware. We had to do some. We had to do a few different modifications to it to make sure that we were screening people that we didn't get to meet across the table anymore. So we had to verify that they were legitimate recipients of the the products that we were distributing. And so it was a complex problem that we just tried to deal with too inexpensively. And so in 2016, we were able to go live with a brand new ERP system with an integrated e-commerce platform. We have an API with GuideStar now, so that people that want to become members can be auto verified. We don't have to, we still love to talk to people. Of course, you can always call us, but if the offices are closed or you're looking at our site on a weekend and wanted to enroll your organization, you can do that if you're a verified 501c3 or if you're a school district. And, those APIs don't come cheap, but those are the type of things you need to do to achieve that kind of scale and to achieve that kind of capacity and help a lot more people. Mm-hmm. So we've invested a lot in our technology, software and hardware. We've invested a bit more in marketing, and we're finding it's really paying off. And we're reversing the flow and evening out distribution to mirror our capacity for inbound products.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like with your old system, it was costing a lot of time, which is really money for donors too, and time for your users having to wait to order things or to be dealing with things on their end too. So it sounds like it's really streamlined everything, made it easier for you, easier for the people that you're serving,
It is, and we've got a number of automations we've invested in, anything from gathering product data to, like I said, enrolling our members. We still feel very strongly that we're about relationships. We like nothing better than to talk to the people at the organizations and find out how these products are being used in their communities. But that's a whole lot more fun conversation than I can't get your website to work.
Right.
So those, we still try to spend time with all of our members, but we are able to serve them more efficiently. We're able to serve our donors more efficiently to make sure that we're giving them accurate reporting and then getting their products back out into the community.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know that you've thought about this overhead thing a lot, and I might put you on the spot here. So if you don't have an answer, that's okay.
Okay.
But there's this idea in the public at large, and I think in the nonprofit world, we've acknowledged that, yes, thinking about overhead is wrong. We really need to invest in the infrastructure of our organizations and make sure that we're robust. But there's still a lot of people out there who don't have really direct connections to the nonprofit sector, who still have this in the back of their mind. Oh, if the overhead rate's too high, I'm not going to give to them because they're a bad organization. Do you have any ideas of how to combat that?
Sure, and I see that meme that goes around from time to time, advertising, and it's usually inaccurate about how much of each dollar goes to goes quote to the mission. We believe it all goes to the mission, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's program and administration are both part of the mission. But I think in my conversations, and it is something that's easily dealt with one-on-one. You're not gonna respond to a Facebook post or a tweet and win people over. You've really got to just have some honest conversations with them. But I think calling out that there's such a double standard, the nonprofit organizations are competing, with for-profit organizations for money, right? I mean, it's a mm-hmm. part of the economy. It's a part of people's disposable income. And I don't know that anybody walks into an Apple store and says, gosh, I love the new iPhone, but, I really want to insist that at least 95% of what I'm paying for this goes into actual production. And I don't want any more than $50 of this to go towards advertising and promotion. Well, there's no way, we don't hold any other industries to that standard, because we know that to become the size of organizations that they have, that they've invested tremendously in marketing their products and in research and development of the very best products that can be out there. When we dream big at Wynn Warehouse, we aspire to be an Amazon of charitable donation distribution, and obviously Amazon has tremendous resources, and we don't have those resources. But when mm-hmm. we're looking at what we aspire to, that's what we think of. We think we really want to be that good at it. And when Amazon started out, I don't think they returned anything to their investors for like 6 years. Which means they were 100% about administration costs, but they built something really, really important. And I certainly don't want to suggest that there's any, 501c3 charity out there that should go 6 years and not do anything with any programs or help any people while they build up capacity. But I think it is important to realize that in this system, in our economic system, we've got to have something to develop capacity, or else, you're just going to wind up with way too many small organizations and not the synergy that you really need to solve the big problems that we've got.
Right. Let's shift gears a little bit. You talked about wanting to help people, like talking with the people or organizations that you serve. And I know that you feel really strongly about the power of stories. Could you share more about the value of stories and how that works itself out in the life of an organization?
Sure. We have a challenge here at Wynn Warehouse of measuring our impact, and I think all nonprofits do, because if you don't measure by something that's like overhead, you've got to say, how do we know that we're succeeding? And, there's a lot of industries that have some very good metrics out there. And if you've got a reading program, you can get access to the kids' test scores and find out, hey, are we having an impact on the population we're serving? And so we're trying to get better about figuring out how we measure win success. It can be very difficult to concisely communicate those metrics. And so, the power of a story to just anecdotally tell people about some of the things that you do, you can add scale to that later and say, we're doing this in this many places. But, to have a story about an organization that we tell one a lot about, a local organization with an employment grant to get veterans back into the workforce. And they had to buy safety equipment for them so that they were ready and OSHA certified when they rejoined the particular types of jobs they were placing them in. And when they were able to get safety glasses and gloves and steel-toed shoes and boots at the Wynn warehouse, they told us that they were able to serve about 6 times as many people with the same grant dollars. They were able to have that kind of impact and to stretch their dollars that much further. And so while that relationship is a small part of what we do at Wynn Warehouse, I think it's important to tell those kind of stories so that people in similar situations know what a resource we can be to them, but also to let other people know, hey, we're doing this in so many other places and at such a scale now that we're really having impact not only in our local community of St. Louis, but increasingly across the country.
Great. And take a step back again to the overhead discussion, because starting that conversation with the board, I think for a lot of our listeners might be a tough thing to do because there's this expectation that they really focus on that. So what do you think would be a good way to start that conversation with the board?
So, well, I can tell you the way I did it, and I don't know if it's the right way or the wrong way, but what I did, we had a board retreat scheduled where I had the board's attention for quite a long time, and just to talk about as we were getting into strategic planning, which is where our budget flows from, and I had queued up quite a few big ideas, such as a new ERP system that was going to require investment. I started by just queuing up Mr. Pilata's TED Talk, and I guess about 15 minutes is the standard TED Talk, and I left about 30 minutes in the agenda for discussion after that, just to kind of let that soak in, and it really did. Kind of challenge some assumptions that we'd had. And, as a board, we had discussed how important those numbers were in the past, and it was becoming less important, but we didn't really have anything for it to just coalesce around. And that discussion, that talk where he just kind of boldly called it out, I don't know that anybody in the room agreed with 100% of everything he said, but they said it's definitely important to find out where the people in the room stand on those things and to just have the conversations and challenge those assumptions.
So be brave.
Absolutely. And in my in my case, I borrowed some of Dan Pilata's bravery, but board meetings should be places where you do feel safe to have those discussions, and where you're not afraid to dream big. I mean, that's really where the vision has to come from. And so, absolutely, a board that's not challenging each other is probably not doing a very effective job.
Good words of advice there. The time always flies by so quickly during these conversations. Before we close, do you have any words of advice or inspiration for our listeners?
Well, Kirsten, I'm going to steal one of yours. I know you always end your podcast with thankfulness, and I think gratitude is probably one of the best encouragers. So, as I said, we get to deal with some of the neatest people, that are just on a mission in their life and their careers. And so I just want to say thank you to all of you out there that are listening for what you're doing in our society and in your communities. And boy, we'd be honored if we have just any help or anything that we can give to facilitate that important work.
Fantastic. And if people want to learn more, what's the best place to send them to?
Our website, winwarehouse.org. That's WINWAREHOUSE.org. Lots of information there. Our product catalog's there if you want to see what type of things we've got available for your nonprofit organization.
Great. Well, thank you again, Travis, for joining us today.
It was my honor. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thanks to all our listeners for everything you do to make the world a better place.
Thanks for listening to the Social Good Instigators podcast with Kirsten Bullock. If you like what you just heard, we hope you'll check out our prior episodes and that you'll pass along our web address, socialgoodinstigators.com, to your friends and colleagues in the social good sector.